For a long time now, scientists have believed that alternate universes exist. Until recently, they had no idea how to prove it. However, a scientist by the name of Brandon Scott came up with an equation that would either prove or disprove the existence of an alternate universe. His equation held one caveat, and that was something that would be responsible for finding such a universe. He postulated that if there was an alternate universe, and that universe was looking for a response to the signals being sent through a portal, then a doorway could be opened between them. It simply meant that any alternate universe that was working on this theory had to have a doorway open, or the two universes couldn't interact with one another. Their own doorway was open, and for the past 3 years they'd been sending signals through it. Brandon had told everyone that the possibilities or odds of another alternate universe conducting the same tests as they were was incalculable. However, sometimes the odds don't mean shit. Jessica was a simple technician, a fancy word for someone who watches the dials and reports any new activity. She was on duty that day and was feeling bored. She'd only recently left college, and this had been her first job. She'd wanted to get into the cutting edge of science, and when she came to the Brandon Scott Institute, she believed that this was where it was at. However, after 6 months of finding nothing, she was starting to feel like she'd made a mistake. She kept consoling herself that because she was only 21, she could find something else if she put her mind to it. What she didn't know was that her life was about to change immeasurably. She'd just taken over from the previous shift and was going through the usual checks and readings, only to find that nothing had changed from the day before or the month before that. So she wanted to know for sure as to whether or not an alternate universe actually existed. She knew that if a doorway between universes could be opened, it would change everything overnight. After checking everything in the lab, she sat down at the monitoring desk and opened up her diary. She was just about to write "nothing to report" when the dials on the console in front of her lit up. It actually made her jump as she wasn't expecting it. She looked up at the signal strength and, sure enough, there was a return signal coming through. She grabbed the phone and dialed the number given to her, and seconds later Brandon Scott picked up the phone. "Hi, Brandon here," he said. "Sir, get down to the lab. We're getting a signal back," said Jessica. All she heard was, "What?" And then the phone went dead. She assumed he was coming down and hung up. A few minutes later, Brandon came rushing into the lab along with 5 other scientists, and they were all looking extremely excited. "Follow that signal and adjust the portal settings by a factor of 1 each 15 seconds. If they're doing the same thing, we will connect with them sooner or later," said an excited Brandon. You could actually feel the excitement in that room. It was almost palatable. "Jessica, keep an eye on that portal. If you see anything other than background noise, shut it out, okay?" said Brandon. "Will do, sir," she replied, before planting herself directly in front of the portal. For the next 20 minutes, the signal got stronger, but nothing was showing in the portal. Then suddenly, Jessica spotted a chair and desk on the other side and screamed it out. "Stop the adjustments right there," shouted Brandon. Everyone stopped what they were doing to look toward the portal, and sure enough, they kept seeing an image of a room. However, the image kept fading out and returning. It looked something like a TV that wasn't quite catching the optimum signal for a clear picture. "We need more power, but if we raise the power any more, there is a possibility that the circuits will burn out and we'll lose what we do have," shouted a scientist that Jessica didn't know. "Yes, but at this point, I don't think we have any choice. Turn the power gain up to 110% and keep an eye on that dial. If it starts to overheat, turn it back," replied Brandon. They did as they were told, and suddenly Jessica could see a tall woman on the other side of the portal. She quickly shouted it out, and everyone was looking. The woman was waving, and both Brandon and Jessica waved back. Brandon started to write something on a board, and when he was finished, he held it up for the woman to see.